Good morning, video games. Welcome to Filthy Casuals, a podcast about video games hosted by three very kind and extremely knowledgeable boys. Thank you, one and all, for joining us. My name is Tommy Dasilo, and as luck would have it, joining me, as always...
It's Ben Vanel here, and boys, I remembered what I was going to do at the start of every episode about 4 seconds ago. This week, on the Patreon episode, we talk about the substance, we talk about couples therapy, and we try and fail at giving our own therapeutic advice, and a bunch of other cool stuff. That's all at patreon.com/filthycasualspod. And the third person on that podcast, and on this very podcast you're listening to, well, he's called Adam Knox.
That's me. I'm the one who saw couples therapy, not went and never will.
Yeah, I was going to say, important distinction to make, although, you know, it might make people sign up rapidly if they thought, oh, there's some real juice going on in the boys' personal lives, and the only way to hear about it is on the Patreon.
Maybe our new mailbag episodes should just be people sending in their couples therapy dilemmas, and we're like the agony uncles and we give them advice.
And I don't want to ruin people's lives like that.
We can't be sued for it is the disclaimer.
Yeah, that's the hook.
Yeah.
That's the point of difference.
The ultimate form of therapy is having a little bit of time to go and play a video game or two. In my opinion.
Yeah.
And they prescribe that. There's that Tetris thing. I'm sure we've talked about it before, of how, like, if you play Tetris, like, immediately after a trauma, it can help, which is absurd. What if your trauma is that a bunch of bricks fell on you, though?
Oh.
Yeah.
Making them disappear might be quite cathartic, actually.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. If you pile them up, if you pile the traumas up, right? It's
Yeah, you just got to line them up. A lot of my traumas are a weird fucking S shape, unfortunately. Hey, speaking of things piling up, on people's dashboards on their PS5s lately, do you know what was piling up? Did you guys see any of this? There was like an update to the firmware or whatever, to the operating system that introduced what Sony has said as a bug, and this has happened. I think this happened to some Xboxes earlier in the year or maybe last year. This happened with like maybe an Assassin's Creed game or something.
There was something, there was something that some ads showed up in, and people were up in arms over it.
It was
something
a full,
that they'd paid for.
Full screen, unskippable ad for, I think, Assassin's Creed, yeah.
In the pause screen of another game as well. And then like there was one, on Xbox dashboards. And a similar thing has happened here where the backgrounds on the PS5, which are normally just like a big picture or whatever, but turning into ads and like outdated ads for things that already come out and weird things. So it does seem like it was a bug, but...
Yeah, I looked up, I just read an article about this, and it had some people's screenshots were like... just like the latest patch for like Elden Ring was the background, and like a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse promo, which obviously is extremely outdated. So yeah, I think it was like dragging the latest thing in like just the RSS for the news feed rather than like just a normal image.
Unrelated things for some games, which I believe them that this was a bug, that this went into this, but I assume that part of that is because on the back end they're always experimenting with like, how can we serve some ads and maybe make some money, but that isn't what they have actually tried to push at this point. But it does seem with every company having these, whoops, we didn't mean to put that out yet. That's
Oh no,
that was in testing.
How
but
bad.
It will.
An ad accidentally showed up. Maybe you accidentally got inspired to spend money on that. Whoopsie. Sorry
did
if
the bug
you did.
make you buy it?
We heard of viral marketing and we thought that's what this was. It was a bug. It was a viral bug.
There's more and more ads all over the place in the entire world. And I mean, hey, we do them in this podcast. It's a way to make money. Ads have always been and everything, but there's a level where it can just tip over. If you're just seeing them all the time on everything, it's when you've bought something. Yeah. Because, this is the free version, or maybe this isn't, and you're over on Patreon, and this is the ad-free version on Patreon. Which is the point. That, like, if you've bought a distinct thing and there are ads in that,
Yeah, there's a level to it where it's like we just accept that it's in everything, it's part of our life, and in a lot of ways it ends up being white noise, but then there is this weird invisible line that people have where it's like, okay, this is egregious, this is bad, this shouldn't be happening here in this product in this way. Like when it's within another thing that you've already paid for, that's when it's a bit like...
That's the thing. If it's like you say, white noise, I will always look at an ad for the... Shit, what's the name of that fucking band? The Living End song, the White Noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like, the only thing worse than, like overt ads is sort of like, subtle, subliminal sort of product placement, which I really hate sort of experiencing that when I'm watching stuff on my LG TV or, you know, if I'm streaming a show on, like, my PlayStation 5, thanks to Sony, or just... Just that kind of stuff really gets to me.
What's that hoodie you're wearing, Ben? That's really nice. It looks really comfy and soft.
Oh, is the logo? The logo should be visible on the video version of the podcast. So you know.
Oh, I thought that was dirt. I didn't realize that was a logo. I thought you'd spilt slop on yourself.
I thought you just written
You thought
a list
that was
on your
slop?
chest and you ticked
Yeah.
one off. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's one of those things where the line is hard to define, but once it's crossed, it's one of the most annoying things.
But at least there has been significant like consumer pushback on any time this quote unquote accidentally has happened. I mean, is that enough to stop the march of capitalism? No, but
Nothing has been so far.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think this one does seem like it was legitimately a bug just because of the types of stuff that was coming up. But whatever exactly that other one was that we were talking about, that was like, they tried the same thing with that from memory. They were like, whoops, and it was like, no, you clearly were trying to just try this on.
Because it was an ad. It wasn't like a news story or something.
Something you were building to try at a different time. That,
Yes.
Exactly.
Went early on it.
Yeah.
Couple of other things have been being built to be tried at different times, probably by us, such as Death Stranding 2, which they showed some more of because it was TGS, the Tokyo Game Show, over the weekend.
Girly
there
show.
Was
The girly show, absolutely.
Yeah, Tracy Jordan was up there mispronouncing the name of Death Stranding 2. He came up with the subtitle on the beach and then they had to run with it.
Keep forgetting that that's a real thing and seeing Kojima post an ad for it and thinking, oh, someone's made like a parody of Death Stranding 2. Oh, no, wait, it actually is called Death Stranding 2, on the beach.
On the beach.
On the beach.
Nothing that crazy. They've confirmed that it'll be 2025. But can't say a date yet because of some other factors, which I assume is like trying to find out when GTA gets brought out and that sort of thing to pick a good date.
Yep. Or when the PS5 Pro is out now, isn't it?
Yes. It's available for pre-order now and it'll be out in November or something.
It would have been good for them to align the release of a new console with a game like Death Stranding 2 or something, but
no, that's crazy.
I'm sorry.
It's not
I've
how
been
we do
taking
things
crazy pills today.
here at PlayStation.
I'm suggesting ridiculous ideas.
I honestly think that must be so hard when you're of sound mind to start taking crazy pills. After you've taken one crazy pill, I can imagine taking more.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
That first
Well,
one?
But I mean, if you start taking them of sound mind and then they kick in, wouldn't you be crazy enough to forget
Stop?
or feel like you don't need the crazy pills?
Possibly.
I'm hoping that happens to me later today. So
It hasn't so far with that bizarre suggestion. I think
I
Death
know.
Stranding 2 should come out next year and heavily promote its photo mode early on in its...
yeah, that's right. That's what they were leading on with this. Yeah.
The stuff that they showed from this photo mode, the motion capture on this just looks fucking insane.
It is
like
crazy.
I was like, oh, they've just filmed this. They've filmed this video with these people in it, and then looking at it differently and going, oh, that's in-game footage. Like, it looks incredible.
Yeah, I think
it is ridiculous.
The stuff in Death Stranding 1 was also fantastic. Like, some of the sort of physical, like the body, stuff was not super one-to-one, but like the faces looked pretty damn good for, knowing those actors and directors super well. Like, as dumb as it is to promote a photo mode, I'm still just excited for this game.
And in this footage, it really does look like their entire bodies and faces. It looks like a bunch of people awkwardly striking poses while Hideo Kojima makes them pose for
Dance
photos.
around.
Yeah. Go, baby. He's doing the Austin Powers. You're a tiger.
So, but yeah, that'll
On
be
the
out.
beach, baby.
While we're
Austin,
talking,
we need you to build a road between this distribution center.
my name's Dead Bastard. Actually, Fat Bastard is the sort of thing that they
Yeah,
would just
100%.
absolutely.
Fat Man
Yes.
was a character at Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 got a trailer as well, the TV show, the
Yes.
season 2. Last of Us season 2, I should say.
yeah.
That happens to be an adaptation of Last of Us 2.
Exactly so.
We think. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of footage in this trailer of later scenes in that game.
Yeah.
For sure. So I don't know if they plan to split this or if this will just be Last of Us 2 as a whole season.
Yeah, because, like, what do we know? Craig Mazin was a Chernobyl EP, I think. And that was like a mini-series, essentially, or a limited series. So, like, I don't know if these two, and Druckmann obviously is, like, heavily involved. I don't know if they want to, like, be tied to this as, like, a 6-season project or whatever. Maybe they do just want to, like, bang out a couple of seasons, cover all the content that exists, and then both, go back to other projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing too, where like I'm sure they know, and Druckmann especially knows. Like, for all we know, Last of Us Part 3 could be coming. The game could be coming out within the next year and a half. You know what? Or at the very least, like if it's in development and being heavily worked on at the moment, Druckmann would know what the story beats are, so they can kind of be developing the next series alongside that, because this is now going to have been 2 years in between seasons of TV shows anyway, so they've got a bit of time to play with. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what the long-term thing is. I mean, it would be cool if they were able to just split off and kind of do their own thing. Like, I wouldn't hate that as a prospect for the show. Like, it just
Why not?
goes in its own direction. They've kind of done that a bit enough anyway, and done it, I think, really successfully. So yeah, but yeah, great trailer. It got me pretty hyped. I kind of didn't expect to see as much of the show in it. I thought it would just be one of those, teasers where you see like maybe 15 seconds of stuff with a bit of voiceover. But like, yeah, there's a fair bit in there.
Yeah, if you've played the game, then you can recognize pretty quickly where all of it is from, other than like Catherine O'Hara's in it and playing a character who's not from the game and some stuff like that. And I'm sure they'll have maybe another episode that's just its own original thing next time as well. But like it seemed to show, if you've played the game, then as with trailers, like if you haven't, you wouldn't know where any of this stuff is from, and it probably wouldn't spoil anything. But it's it's the whole thing. They seem to have done it.
So when does it have a release date?
I think just next year still. I don't think they've set an actual date. But the first season started in January of 23, but
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a bit later than that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it also Oh no, did that overlap with Succession?
No,
I think it
Succession
stopped
took
just
a
before Succession.
spot.
Like there were 2 weeks
Right.
in between.
We can probably, if people know what other shows have dates and stuff, you can probably, slot it into the HBO lineup somewhere. But yeah, I'm so curious to see what they have done with it, and again to see what the response is for people who don't know the story. It's such a weird position to be in, where you really loved a video game version of the story, and you're hoping the TV version lives up to it. But yeah, I mean, we all loved that first season. That was cool. So
yeah, I mean, it's the same with the first game too. Like, not just having a story in it that was great by the standards of that was great for a video game, could hold up against a film or a TV show, but also so much of what made the story impactful was the fact that it was a video game, and the fact that they managed to pull that off translating it back into something that was its kind of format was like a very much a part of its inspiration. Yeah, it'll be really interesting.
Yeah. And one last little-ish thing, but I think it's, dodgy. They put the price of Horizon Zero Dawn, they doubled it to reflect that they're doing that remaster that will cost. So in the UK, the complete edition was £16, and it had been for ages, and then they put it up to £35.
Right. Because that is, if you buy that, you then only pay $10 or whatever the equivalent is to get the PS5 version. Yeah.
Right.
Because then it'll be like £10 or whatever, because the remastered one will be 45. So
keep an eye out for pre-owned copies, I guess. Nab one of those.
Yeah.
Annoying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get it, but also come on now.
Yeah.
No. This is so and it's the same with a remaster being announced and then the original version gets delisted from the store soon after. Sega love doing that with all the different versions of Sonic that they put out.
Right.
Recent grandfather Tony Hawk hinting that there's going to be more Tony Hawk video games. Yeah,
I'm down for that. It was the remaster package was 1 and 2 was a few years ago, which the original games were great, so that makes sense that they were awesome. But I don't think I've played any since the original 2 and the remasters of the first 2. So I don't know. This could mean anything.
3 was great. 4 was good. And then after that, Underground and the ones after that sort of started a downhill slope, which sometimes can be fun on a skateboard. But
absolutely,
in this case, not so much.
Sort of ideal.
Because Tony Hawk's Underground 2 especially, Jackass was at its peak of popularity, and they brought a lot of the Jackass crew into that game to give you missions and stuff. And it was very Bam Margera focused, that game, which would be weird to remaster currently, probably.
Yeah, he'd probably want a lot of royalties.
Yeah, they haven't said what this is either. This is Tony Hawk's tweet. Thanks to Activision, Neversoft, rest in peace, and all of you that played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in those formative years. I'm not supposed to tease anything else about the future of the series, but there will be a future.
Well, it sounds like you've teased it pretty well there, Tony.
I wouldn't even call that a tease. I'd say that he tweeted to completion right there. That was a very plain... And, he's thinking about the future. He's got a new grandkid, like you say, so... you want to know the world's going to be in a nice place, and more Tony Hawk games could mean good. So the thing most people are thinking is it'll be 3 and 4 done in a similar way to 1 and 2.
Yeah, sure. It does seem weird that whatever it is has... Because, when the remasters of 1 and 2 came out, that's a few years ago now, and often it feels like what that means is, we're getting kind of interest back into, do a new version or whatever it is.
Yeah,
so for them to
love a new game.
Yeah, and those were really well received as well. And they've just kind of sat there for a few years and nothing more's happened with it until seemingly now.
They've got time because Skate from EA is taking so fucking long to come out. Yeah. If they wanted to go, fuck Skate, here's a new Tony Hawk's game, which the last new one was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 on the Xbox One and stuff, and that was not well received at all.
Yeah, maybe that's the one that kind of tainted all of them except for 1 and 2 for me, because I do have a slight memory of that. But the engine and the graphics of those remasters were good enough to just either do it for 3 and 4, or just make some new levels. People, I think there's a demand for it. I think those sold really well.
If they can, if they get the people, if they have a crew of people who they think could do justice to that idea, then go for it. There's just been enough Tony Hawk games over the years that people haven't been able to figure out what it was about those earlier ones that worked. I'd be up for a new one. I don't really care so much about the remasters. I think especially PS2 era games, I find it quite easy to go back to, but do whatever you reckon, Tony. It's your world. We're just living in it.
Mr. Anthony Hawk. I just remembered one other thing. So remember that game from last week in the State of Play, Fear the Spotlight, the Blumhouse?
Oh, yeah.
That game has been out for 2 years on Steam, and it came out,
Right.
or like 2 years on PlayStation, or like it's been out. It's been out for years. So they're just releasing it on, I think, maybe PS4 and PS5 were the new versions. But they've just kind of like slapped the production company logo on it and I guess paid for a port to new consoles.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if that's the case with all of their because they announced like 5 games that are coming under the umbrella and they would be, publishing on new consoles. But yeah, I just read that earlier today and found that very odd.
Yeah, that is strange. That game
Yeah.
looked cool. Maybe I'll check it out.
Well, yeah, exactly. You can.
I'm trying to look for this now. On Steam, it looks like it's there's a demo you can download.
I think it said like they've taken down the full build for a big update on the day that it's like quote unquote being released. But it was listed there and there's like user reviews and stuff from years ago. So
Yeah, weird.
Very
weird.
odd. But
I had no
also
idea
like a
about
big cashed up publishing company giving, more eyeballs to these
bit of a
indie
spotlight.
games.
A bit of a spotlight.
I don't-
That's something
Giving
I
them a
fear.
bit of a spotlight.
I don't
wouldn't want one of those. I've heard that they're quite scary.
Is that a reference to me not having a wife? Or-
Yeah, right. That's weird. And I'd be in favor of that. Like going back and giving indie games that,
Why not?
had
Yeah.
some rough edges. Hey, fix this one up. Why
Absolutely.
not? We're living in the world of patches. We're remaking Tony Hawk 3. Fucking anything goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're also making games in old franchises.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Well, one of the remasters that I've taken some of my highest level of umbrage with once upon a time was the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on the Switch.
Yep.
The sort of redone version of that looked super nice. But, it was a one-to-one sort of thing and felt unnecessary. And now here, oh, brother, we got a brand new game in that same style. I'm fine with it now.
Yeah. The Legend
Wow.
of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom came out last week. And what I think is kind of cool, well, I mean, there's lots that's cool about it, but so this was developed by Grezzo, who handled the port of, or the remake of Link's Awakening.
Right.
They've
Can't help but
mostly
think of
just
Grezzo as just the name of one person who's a DJ on the weekends.
Yeah, I feel like, we all know a guy called Grezzo.
Grezzo.
Oh, Grezzo, yeah. He kind of a fuckhead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I ended up at his place for kick-ons the other week.
Yeah. Always dangerous. Always dangerous.
But Grezzo have done mostly just port work for Nintendo. They've done like the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Masks that are on the 3DS.
Right.
They've mostly done that kind of stuff for Nintendo. So it is cool for them to kind of get to, use that experience of having remade these other games and now be sort of given the keys to work on a fully fledged original thing. It kind of makes the whole concept of like, I know that the reason for remakes and re-releases and ports is to get easy money, but if you also do use it as a chance to, give some studios a little bit of practice and then eventually be able to get them to do what they've done here, which is release 2 pretty much fully fledged Zelda games within the 1 year, which is crazy. Like if they could have more like side, little side teams going on doing this kind of stuff.
Little side pieces. Isn't
yeah.
that how Retro got their start? Didn't they start off
maybe.
making ports?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I
I
don't
don't
know
really
if
know
they
what their origin is.
did, because Metroid Prime was their first game that I'm aware of, and that there weren't really that many ports and things of that nature on the 64 and stuff before the GameCube. So I don't know, maybe.
Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
thinking
not
of is Blue Point. It was another one that was
Blue
doing
Point
a lot
definitely
of
Blue
ports.
Point have. Yeah, they've
Yeah.
done remakes. Yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
with this Horizon remaster that part of the reasoning behind doing that, obviously, again, other than Cha-Ching, is they've got a bunch of new people there who they need to sort of train.
Yeah.
By
Oh,
getting
yeah,
them to do
yeah.
something.
Interesting.
So yeah, this is a brand new game. It is made, I think, for the first time since those Capcom Game Boy Color ones, Oracle of Seasons and Ages. It's a fully fledged Zelda game that is made by someone other than sort of the core Nintendo teams.
Yeah.
It's in the style of that Link's Awakening remake, which was such a cool look and such a unique sort of that chibi tilt-shifted, colorful, cartoony look that I think really works for this game, because what you're doing in here is you're not playing as Link, you're playing as Zelda this time, and she's got this rod that can conjure items that you've learned in your little item book, and that's how you interact with the world. You can place down objects to climb over them, or use their properties to move around the world or whatever, or to solve puzzles, or you can conjure enemies who you've defeated in the past to fight for you, sort of like a little team of Pokemon or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a cool change, and it's a fitting and fun feeling point of difference, but also totally suits the style of gameplay that these sort of 2D top-down Zeldas have that it's evoking. And it ends up being a cool mixture of Tears of the Kingdom from a year and a half ago, and the more traditional Zeldas kind of melded together in this really interesting way that I'm enjoying.
And it's it's like, would you call it more of a puzzle game? Because you're not personally doing combat, right?
Well, you still are. The combat isn't hands off. You summon these enemies to do things, but they all have such a limited scope of their moves and whatever, that you're going to be moving them around or actively participating. By a little bit into the game, you get the ability to go into rage mode in God of War or whatever, where you get the sword and the shield, and you can basically fight as Link would.
Oh, that's right.
But you've got a timer, so it doesn't last you particularly long, and the little shards that you get to charge that up are pretty sparing, so you can go pretty long chunks where you have to be pretty sparing about when you use it.
There are pretty clear areas where there's a boss fight or something where you're going to be using that more.
Right.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it probably is more puzzle, although I wouldn't say it feels like the amount of enemies that are in there is dialed back from any other Zelda game where you play as Link, especially in a dungeon. Most rooms have a bunch of guys, there to take out. And to begin with, you start this game with 3 hearts or whatever. I was dying pretty regularly because just that brain shift of you have to really get used to combat in a different way, because you can be in a room where there's 4 or 5 guys in there, and you can get taken out really quickly. And it's not as simple as just going around and taking all of them out. You have to think about your positioning, and you have to summon up the right guy. You have to interact with the combat in such a different way that kind of took me a little bit to get used to, not in a bad way, but just to I have to really think about how I'm taking on these encounters in such a different way to how I normally would in a Zelda game.
Comparing it to Link to the Past and the other sort of 2D Zeldas especially, the combat is maybe more involved in one way because of the nature of you being this sort of commander on the field, rather than just running up and
you're more mentally engaged, because there's I
think in the bosses particularly, they kind of become this cool puzzle where it's not just okay, that's the weak spot, here's his pattern, I'll take that out. It's also about okay, well, what thing am I summoning to hit that weak spot? And when he pivots around, I'm gonna have to be over here, and if I summon this thing, it's going to get rid of the other thing that I've summoned. They become, the boss fights kind of become this cool sort of puzzle in their own way of figuring out not just, I hit that bit. It's well, what's the thing that I use to get that to happen, that I need to happen when I need to happen?
It's that very traditional Zelda mix of being, kind of mainly a puzzle game, but with these sort of action elements to it that really works in this, and I'm enjoying that aspect of it for sure. Because the way it sort of functions, you get a few different abilities as you go, but if you're given a puzzle of there's a switch over here but you can't physically reach it or whatever, your options are to conjure an object, and you have sort of this index of objects that you've learned in the past, and you've got a limited number of sort of slots that they can occupy whilst being out in the world. So you'll have it starts with 3 little triangles running behind you. Summoning a simple thing like a table or a pot will cost 1, but maybe a really strong enemy or a strong monster that you can summon will be all 3. and so on.
Oh, okay.
And over time, you build up more of them, and then eventually the summons start to cost less as well. So as you're going on and clearing stuff, you're getting the ability to, where previously you could have like one of these guys, now you can have maybe like up to 3 of them or whatever.
So maybe there's a platform you can't get to, and you could just build a bridge of beds to go get it, and that's a pretty easy way to do a lot of things in this. Or you could, you've also got this ability you get fairly early on to move things, similar to Tears of the Kingdom, where you cast out this like green line, and it will grab an object, and you can move it around the world.
Okay.
And you can do that with enemies. You can do that with your guys. You can do that with any sort of movable object that there is in the world. So maybe you'd be able to move a box that's somewhere else to go on the Switch. You can, you get a bunch of different abilities in a very Zelda-y way as the game goes on. But these abilities are more to do with expanding on that core concept than introducing a new, like, here's a hook shot or here's a whatever other item.
And with that, like, grabbing the objects, you can also, rather than moving it around, you can just link yourself to it and move around with it. So if you've got if there's a bird flying around, you can do the thing to it and then follow it so it'll fly off and you're being kind of dragged along behind it. And so given that you can do that with every enemy and object and whatever else that you can summon, that gives you a lot of ways to get around and solve these puzzles. And like, because a lot of it is the way that a traditional Zelda game would kind of feed you these new items that you're getting, like a hook shot, like a boomerang, whatever it is. They don't exist anymore. What exists is you finding these new kind of echoes that all of a sudden you realize, I can use these for everything. And you uncover so many echoes in this game. There's so many of them. And a lot of them just sit in your index and then never end up being useful for anything again. Although that being said, I'm sure within a few months there'll be videos of like, a guy who's like, I 100%ed this game using only the pot. I'm sure there are people out there still who are using the most useless ones. But like, what's cool too is, there's always these kind of random little caves and dungeons and stuff that you find in the Zelda games that are completely optional, and your reward for doing them, because the Zelda games don't have, stats or XP or anything, your reward might just be some rupees, which you don't really necessarily need, or like an ingredient that isn't necessarily super useful. But in here, in pretty much every time I've gone into an optional cave or whatever, what I found is a new echo, like an enemy that's like pretty powerful to take out, but then you've got an echo of him. So then in your combat, you've got this like slightly more powerful guy to help you out, or just an object that is going to make your traversal slightly easier. So it does become, I tend to not really be too sucked in by them, the optional, little poking around in the Zelda games. But here it really is worth, like, every little door that you see or little cave that you see, it really does become worth going in there, because you're like, I wonder what fucked up little guy I'll find in there that's then going to be part of my little personal army that I get to send out.
Because the echoes, a lot of them are kind of useless. And the ones that do have a use, though, you can use in what feel some pretty creative feeling ways. Know? It feels improvisational in a similar way to what was best about Tears of the Kingdom, which is very cool. It's annoying to select them. It's a shit system, same as the weapons in like Tears of the Kingdom, where you're just bringing up this like horizontal menu that you go through.
This endless long line, and
there
a lot
is
of
like
the
a
times,
book you can open in the pause menu to like go through, and but that is also kind of clunky. Like, I'd love to be able to just save a couple of favorites, and you can sort them by like most used and that sort of thing, but I don't think there's a way to favorite them. Maybe I've just missed that.
Yeah, I don't know if there is. I mean, there's no like wheel or anything like that, like you say,
it's
having
not quick.
like
It's annoying. 5
of them on there would be handy. I mean, I do tend to find, for the most part, in each area that I'm in, I've got like maybe 4 or so that I'm just kind of cycling around. And so your most recent, they're chronological by how recently you've used them. So it's like, okay, I've got my platform guy, I've got my table, I've got my tile, and then I've got my little Axeman, and I'm just kind of rotating through them. And then it, like, every now and then having to go like yeah, when I was playing it last night, I was having to go right the way back to find one that I'd either never used or used once way back at the start of the game, and it really dawned on me like, oh, I've found a lot of these fucking things. Like, I've gotten so many of them at this point.
It's a bit clunky, and like while we're talking about that sort of stuff, there was something else, but the performance is weird. Like, it shifts really distractingly and irritatingly between like 60 down to 30 frames in the like sort of overworld bit mostly, and it's like this juddery sort of irritating, bizarre inconsistency that feels really sloppy and bad, unfortunately.
It's strange, isn't it? Like, I remember that was a big thing with Link's Awakening. It was mostly because that game was using the skeleton of the Game Boy game that was, you only ever saw, like, the camera of the overworld wasn't moving around with you, so it would, like, the screen would like shift across to the next area. And it was mostly when that was happening or in densely populated areas. And I remember hearing a thing not long after it came out that was just some kind of weird, like, lack of optimization thing where, like, the tilt shifted effect of making the game look like the little diorama, and then the lighting in conjunction with that was, like, interacting badly with each other, which was making it happen. But to have it happen here as well, and especially, like, I kind of just wish when it is hitting the 60, it looks so nice, but it's the fluctuating. I don't think it's even going down that much below 30. It's not getting super bad. It's just it's the inconsistency. It's the like
and it's
crazy.
It's
the
areas,
crazy
like,
drop off is the most distracting thing about it. If it was locked to a more consistent 30, I don't think it'd be. It wouldn't be nearly as noticeable. Yeah, it's strange.
I think I've seen it being said that it's because of them trying to stream data and the Switch's memory isn't doing it properly for some reason, whatever it is.
Right,
and that's why it happens in the overworld mostly. But whatever's causing it, it sucks. And I agree that like it would have been better to mitigate the issue by limiting it to 30 than have it be like shifting up and down and back and forth, because it really looks weird and is annoying. But like visuals wise, the game looks cute and nice. It's a very similar style to that Link's Awakening one, where everything's very colorful, very cartoony, and it works for the style of this game.
I think it looks great, especially on the handheld. Playing it on the OLED, it almost it like a lot of Switch stuff. I kind of think it almost looks better on that smaller, nice screen, especially like the style of it too. Like really lends itself more to that the sort of. The chibi style kind of feels a bit more like a handheld experience than a big full console thing.
It feels like the side game that comes out on the off year or whatever in a cool way though, because it feels creative. And the one other thing that, just while we're talking about negatives, it's a little slow at times. There's a little of that over explaining and just like really walking you through things from bit to bit, especially early on, that just was a little boring, because once you're into the main thing of it, using this interesting system of casting these objects and creating and like almost going into like fucking Minecraft creative mode type thing, and like figure it out from here. It's really cool and it's fun once you're swimming in it.
And it's also, I mean, again, this is just very Zelda, where it's like you do a lot of these bits where you've got your big main dungeons that are all kind of within a rift that you have to travel into, that is the kind of the thrust of the plot, that these little chasms have opened up that are sort of seem to be like a portal to another dimension that are kind of sucking in the world. And so if you can go in there and clear this rift out, then that's your little friend that's traveling around with you has the power to do that. So you'll have your dungeons that are within those rifts that you have to go in and clear. But then you've also just got these little bits that you go into that are kind of like these, not quite platforming sections, but they're a little smaller and more self-contained, where it's like, hey, there's like 4 of my friends in this area that we have to find, and they're a little bit more just like hop around this bit, make a little platform
I
over
haven't minded
here.
them though, because even making those platforms feels fun.
Sorry, I'm saying I like those bits, but like when you clear them, then there's like a long unskippable thing of, hey, we found all my friends, hooray!
Right,
And
yes.
then all the friends kind of like circling around, and you're a bit like, yeah, man, I get it. Like after every boss that you do, after every time you come out of the rift again, there's another little exchange, and it's all like it's all fine. It's well written in the context of it being Zelda. Like it's fine and it's charming, but it is just very. It is just like it's constantly.
Just a bit
thing I've
protracted.
realized is such a trope of Zelda too, of like you find a character and you talk to them and something happens and then the screen goes black. And then when it comes back, the character's gone. You know that thing of like, you never see the person walk
I'd
off.
say
We
yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
we
Little
just
Batman
fade to black
style.
and then we come back. It's like, it's just all these little things where it's like, yeah, it is pretty regularly sort of like, yeah. And I mean, when you're in the midst of it, it's all pretty, it doesn't really have that thing that like, I feel Link's Awakening has a bunch of areas that you can't get to early on that you need a certain item for. This kind of doesn't really have that. Like you do get most of the tools that you need to get around almost straight away, where then you can just like climb up onto the top of the trees and walk along them to kind of go over into the next area that's behind that. You're not really like gated in the overworld in the way that you're coming up against an edge and being like, oh, I guess I just don't have the bomb to take that out yet. Like
It's a lot more of a mix of the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom stuff combined with the older Zelda in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's I agree that like some of the dialogue and stuff, it just takes too long and I'm not interested in it for whatever reason in this. Like there's bits of it and I like the designs and whatever, and I like that there are the River Zora and the Sea Zora in this because there have been two different like Zora designs and and it's like, oh cool, they're both here. We're all the gang's all
Right.
here.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, most of the areas that you go to before you find the dungeon, there's like there's a little thing that you've got to do. It's like, these two guys are fighting. Go here and talk to him. And then you go there and it's like, he's not here. He's over here. And it's like all those little things that just take just a little too long, and it's fine and the flavor of it's nice, but it's not
They're
the
just not
overall
having the most
thrust of what's
interesting
happening
chats.
isn't like, it's not like, it's not groundbreaking stuff. Like it's fine, but yeah.
But the actual core game, and I want to keep playing it like that. It's a cool mechanic and it works well, and they've designed some fun puzzles around it. And there are times when you genuinely do feel like, oh, I came up with that. We're like, no, they made it. You-
100%. And like,
But,
I a couple of times, there was a time early on when I got stuck and I just could not work out what to do, and I had to look it up, and it was like, oh yeah, in that thing you kill the platform guy and then you learn the platform, and I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot to, you know what I mean? Like I saw this new guy and I forgot to take him out and learn the thing. Like I just, I kind of had like forgotten the like internal logic of the game. I was like, oh, I thought that was just a platform that I had to avoid.
Right.
I didn't realize it was a thing that I could take out and then, learn it and then have one for myself. Right.
You do consciously need to be remembering your abilities when you come up against something. You've got to remember, like, hey, remember you can send these guys maybe a little further over if you want to, or whatever. Like,
yeah.
So I'm enjoying it. Like, it's the stuff that's good is really fun. There's just enough around it where, I mean, I think part of it, to be honest, is that it's not got quite that polish that like a Nintendo primary team sort of thing might have. But it is cool, and I like the ideas, and it's, it's nice to play as Zelda having a different thing to do. I think that's a cool idea. And
I mean, I wonder how much of the sort of negatives come down to it being on a console that should have been retired like a year ago.
Honestly, I wouldn't say that's even part of it, because the game isn't like doing so much that it shouldn't be possible here.
Yeah.
Like Tears of the Kingdom worked and looked better.
Yeah,
by
that's
quite a
true.
long margin. So
it's I'm really enjoying it. I think it's also I think it's cool that they set themselves this challenge of going back to this format that a lot of people, and I'm loving the dungeons. I'm not one of those people who was pissed off that they're not in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I thought their version of that was like as interesting as what's been in them traditionally. But I yeah, the idea of going, okay, yeah, let's go back to this. Let's go back to this really quickly. Let's not make it the next big new one that takes another 5 years to come out. Let's like crank this off almost as like if it is like there's two streams to the Zelda games now. And it's cool that they kind of in the same way that they did with Mario Wonder, this kind of format of Mario that they haven't done anything new or interesting with in a while, and then they come back to it and not only do a good version of it, but they do a good version of it with these like really, really new and creative and interesting ideas. Like it's for me, this is the kind of thing that makes them a company that I love so much, that they never really rest on laurels. Like even when they are going back to a style and a format that they've had for what, like 35 years or something now, they are still, I mean, they could have just gotten a side dev to just make a really traditional 2D top-down Zelda with dungeons, and you play as Link. There's some whatever new weird item in it, and it's pretty much plays it safe, and I'm sure it would have sold millions of copies. People would have really loved it, but I think it's so cool that they go, hey, yeah, what if we take what we learned from those two games and see if there's a way to make them work in this completely different format. It's fun.
It's cool. The experimentation stuff, I agree, is really cool with their established franchises. So keep it up. I like this game. I'm going to keep playing it.
Yeah.
What more do you fucking want from me?
Yeah. I think I'm nearly done with it. I've been absolutely mainlining it.
Yeah,
wow.
Nice.
Powering through.
How long do you reckon it is then?
I think from what I've read, it's between 10 and 15 hours.
Okay.
It's not like it's not a super beefy one, but it's kind of more in line with what those
The Game Boy stuff.
what those old school ones were. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been playing a game that has unlimited potential playtime.
What the fuck? I mean,
That's
I
right.
could play anything forever, technically.
Well, this, I don't know if it has an end because it's a multiplayer game. Because, boys, I have been playing Helldivers 2.
Okay.
Never heard of it.
So what you're trying to say is you're out of the contest.
Me and Tommy are both still peeking through the window looking at someone on the other side of the street who's playing Helldivers in their living room. Helldivers came out start of the year. We were all busy or something, kind of missed it. It was a bit of a gap in the year's stuff that's come out. But I heard there was a good new patch recently and people are liking Helldivers again. But they went off it for a part of the year or something.
That must have been why it sort of came up again in sort of my consciousness, because I had completely forgotten about it and was almost resigned to never playing it. But I was also, I think, I played it a couple of weeks ago now, so I think it was like before Black Myth came out, after something else had sort of, I'd had my fill, and I was just kind of looking around for something to play. I was, poking around the PSN store, and lo and behold, Helldivers 2 was right up there at the top, and I thought, why the fuck not? And so
What a
I
take.
jumped in.
We should also say to the listener at about 3:30 in the afternoon Melbourne time, we're getting on the call at 5. We got a message from Ben saying, boys, I've got a gaming bombshell for the show today.
Oh, is this the bombshell?
Yeah, this is the bombshell.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, had this experience with bombshells before. We've all got different tastes, haven't we? Yeah, right. Well, so what are you thinking of Helldivers 2 then?
It's fine.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
No,
All right.
it is like...
Now that's the bombshell.
It's really good. It's very Moorish and it's very fun. Once you've sort of like, gone through the tutorial and all of that stuff, and like you've made your character, it's very... I think perhaps why it took off so much is like it's streamlined. You get in there pretty quick. There's not a lot of complexity to that early game sort of stuff. Like you can just get matched up with a bunch of random people. It's like, I think four player teams, and most of the time it's sort of like a Battlefront on a smaller scale thing of like, go over here because these bugs have landed over here and you've got to take out this factory at the same time. And then, after that, you've got to follow up with a couple of like little things over here. And then you've got to get to the extraction point. And every time you get to the extraction point, there's like another wave of enemies. And so like, I think structurally it's like, it's very good. And the onboarding process is very smooth. But I don't know why it's like blown up in the way that it has. Like, it's not that markedly different from every other co-op third-person shooter or first-person shooter that I've played. Maybe that's just because like it's not my thing, my favorite genre, so I don't know the sort of nuances that separate it. But I mean, yeah, it's a good game. I don't know. I don't know why it hooked everyone in so much, and I don't know why so many people were like, you've got to play Helldivers 2 and tell us what you think of it. Because it's like, and aside from the fact that, so aesthetically, it's Starship Troopers. Mm-hmm. At just 100%, every single thing about it is ripped off from Starship Troopers. That's not bad because like it fits the game perfectly. It's sort of like the structure, I think, overall is more like there's a planet is now the target of the military, and everyone in the world is sort of fighting to increase the percentage of, you know, whatever, conqueredness by humanity. And so, like, every time you jump into a game, it's saying, like, you know, this planet is 1.78645543% conquered. And, you know, every time you participate and complete a mission, the percentage moves up by 0.00001. And so, like, that's cool. But yeah, aesthetically, it's just like, you're part of the mobile infantry. Let's go kill bugs. Let's do it for humanity. We're in the right. Patriotism. Hoorah. And I guess if you've not seen that movie, it would feel really novel and fun and funny. And like, I guess it still is that, but it, you know, when it, you know, the thing that it's like just a direct rip off from.
Sure.
It's a little bit less like novel and fun. So like, I don't know. I guess maybe people are really enjoying that thing of it, unironically being like, yeah, I'm part of the army. I'm saving the world from bugs. But as a game, it's like a perfectly fine co-op shooter. That's my review. I don't think I'll play any more of it, but not out of, you know, disliking it. It's just I prefer playing Uncharted, I guess.
Well, folks, I hope it was worth the wait. There you go. We finally
I reckon that would be a satisfying.
talked about Helldivers 2
Honestly,
audio.
anyone who's looking for our opinions on things, I reckon it would be a satisfying conclusion to have Ben review Helldivers 2 and go like, I like Uncharted more.
I like this game that's not really of the same genre at all.
Well, that's it. I don't like the genre. And
Yeah, right.
That's why we're not, like, if we don't play something that is a big game, it's because we don't think we'll enjoy it that much.
We don't have any interest in it.
Yeah. And so, like, hey, props to this game. I'm glad it's doing well, and it's like, is slightly more interesting than, you know, just like
That's
very
so big of you.
straight down the line, you know, like or like a Rainbow Six or something like that is just like, or like a Body Cam, you know, that game. It's very similar in terms of the mechanics. It's a co-op shooter, but at least this has some like fun aesthetics to it. But yeah. What more did you want from us people?
Yeah. No, thanks for doing what Adam and I were too cowardly to ever do. Interacting with Helldivers 2.
I might have
really
liked
am
it as
brave.
well. I still think I might like it, but I think
you'd like it more than me. Yeah, for sure.
There's other stuff around.
Well, something that I've been playing that I'm certain I would like more than either of you two. I have been playing a little game called Epic Mickey Rebrushed.
Oh, yeah.
This is
I reckon you're spot on.
Yeah.
This is a remake of the Adam, help me out here, 2011?
Or something around there, maybe earlier, 2010, maybe later, 2012. Maybe
Epic
2009.
Mickey, famously developed by Warren Spector, where he was going to Disney
2010.
because they'd started publishing. So he was going to them to pitch ideas of his own that he'd had. And they instead said to him, how would you feel about maybe making something for us? Are there any of our IP that you'd like to maybe work with? And he said what I think is my favorite quote in video gaming. He apparently looked at this Disney executive and said, I want the ducks. Give me the ducks. They did not give him the ducks. They gave him Mickey Mouse instead.
They gave him Michael Mouse.
Yep.
The flagship.
Yeah, I mean, that is the number one. I'm surprised he didn't ask for the mouse, but Yeah.
So this game was relatively well received when it came out. Like conceptually, people had a lot of issues with the motion controls and the camera. The camera, of course, being automatic because you're using the stick to move around and the Wii remote to aim. So there's no way to do the camera yourself. So this gets rid of all the motion controls. It's a complete. I think it's more remake than remaster. Like it's completely been redone. The visuals look great. The actual like design of the game, the like visual aesthetic of like you're in this kind of like warped, like fucked up, broken down, twisted version of Disney World, and there's like kind of versions of like the old, like the cows and stuff from the Merry Melodies cartoons and stuff like that, kind of getting around this cool kind of like, grimy pastiche with this like old sort of forgotten, obscure parts of the Disney kind of canon, and then kind of riffing on that. Like there's all these different versions of Big Bad Pete in it that are different sort of bosses and different enemies. And yeah, what you're doing is like pretty straightforward of the time 3D platformer stuff. But I'm really enjoying it. It controls great. It feels really smooth and fluid and responsive. I really think it's like just, again, mostly down to like the actual aesthetic design of it and just like what they've done with the lighting effects and everything. It just looks great. Like I just think it looks so fucking good that I'm just really loving being in the world of it and yeah, kind of interacting with it. And I think it's cool that it's been given this sort of second go around, because it seemed like those elements of it that people didn't really like and were quite dated. And it is also like, having read about it, there's a whole chapter about it in one of Jason Schreck's books. I've always been kind of so fascinated by like the existence of this game. Like this was an era where Disney thought that they were going to do more stuff like this rather than just have these like, sort of pretty dodgy licensed games, or they did really want to become like a big like gaming house, and then they
had their own studio, right? Like
they sort of completely gave up on it after this and then the sequel to this,
right?
But thinking about like Spectre wanted to make like a cool adventuring Uncharted like DuckTales game. Like that would have been fucking rad. Like it's a shame that if they continued down this path and they plucked, talent that was, known for other stuff, and kind of, it's not like there's anything like too crazy in this game, but just the fact that he got to make a game that has the most popular character of all time kind of interacting with this sort of dark, twisted version of the world. Like for Disney, it's like a pretty huge leap of faith to have taken. Like, even though, it's not like it's a Conker's Bad Fur Day, like R-rated game or anything like that. But
just like treating their IP in that way, it probably isn't something they would do anymore. Like,
I just don't think they would do at all. Even this, like, relatively for any other company, quite mild version of it, which for them would have been pretty massive. Like, I do wish that they had, opened themselves up to doing a bit more stuff like this. But I'm enjoying it. I think there's a demo on Steam. I don't know about the other platforms. I assume there's a demo on there as well, but it's worth if you've ever had like even a mild interest in this, or you're a Mickey fan, or you're a 3D platformer fan, definitely worth checking out, because I'm having a good time with it. It feels fun to be running around as a little rodent, little mouse. Little mouse man.
I mean, that's got me. That's the sell I needed. Although it does sound like you would rather play Uncharted, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't help myself. I did reference it just then in something I was saying. So I guess I just subconsciously have Uncharted on the brain as I'm playing this. I'm sweating like a whore in church.
All right, is that us for this week, boys?
I think so, yeah.
I reckon it might be.
That's a hell of an episode of a podcast about video games, if you ask me.
That's undeniable. Folks, get onto our Patreon. Filthycasuals.com.au is where you can find the links to that. You get a bonus show every week. You get heaps of stuff on there on the various different tiers, but heaps of extra content for you to interact with. We've got our YouTube channel where we've got the Let's Plays and the one-offs and all the hundreds and hundreds of things we've done on there. Thank you, one and all, very much for listening. And as we say at the end here of every episode of Filthy Casuals,
Would have preferred a podcast about Uncharted.